friends, welcome to the first episode of Because I Have Thoughts. I hope you watch the intro episode, then you got a feel of what this podcast is about. My name is Dr. T, and I will be sharing my thoughts on this podcast about all of my lived experiences as a Black woman, whether it is corporately, creatively, religiously, academically, in all of the spaces where I have had life experience as a Black woman. I will be sharing my thoughts on some of those things. I will also be sharing some of the books I've written, passages from books I've written, the project that I'm working on right now, and some of the things that I've done in coaching, discipling, and mentoring, because I've done all of the things, and teaching. I'll be sharing those things on this podcast. Today, I'm going to talk about a premise that I have taught many times in teaching my students, in teaching residents, in teaching women over large platforms through an organization that I used to have called P31. My sweatshirt today. A little nod to P31 and the work that the organization did for many women for many years. But one of the premises that I would teach was just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I'm going to talk a little bit about where that came from. So we all know the story of Adam and Eve. If you live on this planet, you know the story of Adam and Eve, because the relational component of Adam and Eve is woven into the very fibers of our existence on earth, especially relationally with regards to man and woman. A lot of the relationship interactions or engagement or structure or roles of Adam and Eve is incorporated into how we engage one another in many different spaces. So we all know the story of Adam and Eve, whether it is directly or we heard it through someone else. We know the premise of Adam and Eve on some level if you live on planet Earth. So this phrase came from, or this thought, this application, however you want to phrase it, and compartmentalize it into your life, came from Adam and Eve and the story of Adam and Eve. We all know the story of Adam and Eve. They ate the fruit. I am not absolving Eve from eating the fruit first, because I know men will, I don't want to hear it. I got it. She ate the fruit first, but they both ate it. And that's what we're going to focus on. Because just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because your girl asked you to eat the fruit don't mean you should. Okay. But anyhow, that's basically where the premise came from, is like, just because you can, just because the option, the opportunity, the choice is in front of you, doesn't mean you should do it. You do have a choice or an option between should and could. There's more than one way to resolve whatever the situation may be. So this premise, just because you can doesn't mean you should, I started teaching it probably in 2013, so it's about 11 years old because it's 2024. And it kind of resurfaced recently through some books that I have been reading, some podcasts that I personally listen to, YouTube videos that I personally watch, and just transitioning out of a season of life that was quite dysfunctional, based on the fact that I have forgotten the key components of this premise. So I guess I'll share a little bit about my personal journey first, and then we'll keep diving deeper. I'm crazy, y'all. But anyway, so I'm in a really good season now, but I just transitioned out of a really dysfunctional, really difficult one. And during that season, I realized that I was doing multiple jobs and multiple projects, working over 80 hours a week sometimes, not sleeping. I probably slept maybe 3 to 4 hours at night, like so seriously. And I'm not even exaggerating, like I was really working that hard, and I was trying so hard to please so many people's expectations of me and expectations of who they thought I should be, or what my title, what the roles that I was living in should look like based on their particular definitions of who Dr. T was supposed to be. I was also working against like all of those internal, or all of those stereotypes that we internalize as we live our lives, as we grow. One being that all Black people are lazy. Like if you Black and you don't have more than 3 jobs, you lazy. Like that was the message. The other message was like, Black women don't want to work. We just looking for somebody to take care of us. That is not a true statement. I mean, we would like to be cared for just like any other human on this planet, but we are not searching for somebody to just completely provide for us in the capacity that we just don't have to do anything. And I'm going to do an episode on provide versus care for. I'm gonna make a note of that because that's gonna be that's a good episode to do. I'm gonna do that too. But anywho, I was also working against the fact that pretty girls aren't smart. Through my childhood, I just heard that all the time. Like, you don't need to be smart, girl. You're pretty. And I was just like, but I want to be. I would be in classes and I would hear that a lot. Like, you're already pretty. You don't have to be smart too. And then the other thing that I was working against was the fact that artists aren't disciplined people. I'm a very creative person. I express myself creatively through many things, through the decor in my home. I'm very particular about the decor in my home. I love decorating my home. My appearance, I'm very particular on what I wear, how I wear it, my clothing. I write. I have authored several books. I have tons of writing in so many places. I've written academically. I've written creatively. I've written for inspirationally. I've written journals. I've done radio. You name it. If there's a writing component, I've done it. Public relations, marketing, advertising, all of it. I've done it. So I'm a wordsmith, I like to call myself, because I've written in so many different genres. I'm in that creative space. I also do graphic design, a lot of graphic design. I made my own logo. I made this logo. I creatively directed this logo. I didn't actually make it, but I expressed what I wanted it to look like creatively. But I actually made this logo, and all of the logos that you'll see on my platform I made as well. If you've gone to my website, I designed that website. So I'm a very creative person, and I did not want to lean into the cliche of starving artists, meaning artists are lazy and that's why they don't have no money, that type of thing. So I was working against all of those things in the most dysfunctional way that I possibly could, because I was not applying the premise of just because you can just doesn't mean you should. And I didn't even realize how this self-inflicted rat race, what it was doing to my emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual state. Because prior to the dysfunctional season, I kind of had things, I don't want to say under control, because I don't believe that I am in control of my own life. I believe that God is in control of my life. But I was managing them well. As a manager of my life, as God has empowered me to be the manager of my life, I was managing it well prior to going into this very dysfunctional season that I've been talking about. I had my vices under control. I had very fruitful time with God and was very intentional about having time with God. I would even have like date nights with God where I would set up at the table and have my scriptures out, my candles lit, like me and God was on a date, like for real. And when I say God, I mean Jesus Christ and God, Holy Spirit as one. Let me just say that, because some people have a problem with you just saying God, and you're like, no, I mean the Holy Trinity, every aspect of God. So I was doing that well. And I was honing my crafts. I was spending time. Oh, I also sing. I didn't say that in my list too. I sing and I act. I've been in plays. So I have a list. I'm just an overall creative person, and I blossom and do well when I am being creative and have space to do so. But I was spending time honing my craft. I was going to the studio at night, singing backgrounds for people. I was also in a play. So I was really in a good space, mentally, physically, emotionally. Even my body was in a good place pre this dysfunctional season. And it got so bad that, like, okay, before the dysfunctional season started, I was probably like a size 6'8" in jeans. Girls, women, y'all know what I'm talking about. By the time I got to the end of the dysfunctional season, I was a size 16, 18 and lying to people and telling people that I wore a 14 or a 12. And they could obviously see that I was not in a 12, 14, that I was truly in a 16, 18. That was the largest I had ever been in my life. I never weighed that much in my life, but that's how much saying yes to so many things to please so many people and not taking the time to decide, just because I can do it, should I do it? That was not at the forefront of my mind. The forefront of my mind was like, I need to make all of these people happy, and I need to do it, and then I'll be happy if they're happy. So that leads me to, that's how I got here to talk about this again today, after not really thinking about this premise for, like I said, about 11 years, because 2013 was probably the last time. No, I think I taught it in 2018. So I taught it, but I wasn't practicing it. Let me just say that. But I feel like we've gotten to a place where discipline has been redefined as the ability to do multiple jobs or activities at once without regard to balance or necessity. Let me say that again. I feel like discipline has been redefined as the ability to do multiple jobs or activities at once without regard to balance or necessity. And that's where just because you can doesn't mean you should, the premise comes into play. Because we seem to live in a world right now where we're encouraged to do everything, to say anything, and to be anything. We are completely disconnected there's this disconnect between choices, decisions, and consequences. We've lost the importance of the actual skill and the art form of saying no. We are encouraged to agree to everything so we can seem more busy. I like this point. I wrote this point down, so I'm going to start over with this point. We have lost the importance of and the actual skill of saying no. We are encouraged to agree to everything so we can seem more busy, which implies that we are more important. If we're juggling more than 4 obligations, then we must be in high demand, which means we are gifted, talented, intelligent, likable, and accepted. Busy has become the barometer for significance and acceptance. I'm going to say that again. Busy has become the barometer for significance and acceptance. Just let that sit in. Like, do you feel more accepted? I know people who I have been friends with, associates with, wherever they are on your measurement, because everybody defines associates and friends and relationships differently, which I'm gonna do an episode about that too. I think that's gonna be episode 2. But just they feel significant because they can say, I'm too busy to take your call. I'm too busy to answer your text. Oh, I'm too busy. Oh, let me check my calendar. Those are all things that make us feel significant. And we live in a world that encourages that. And so many people are just burnt out. And so many people have lost their way of like what really is important and what really is necessary to help them feel fulfilled in their lives. Let me give you some examples. So I'm going to start small of just because you can doesn't mean you should. First thing in the morning, donut, granola, or yogurt. Or if you're lactose intolerant like I am, I would choose oat-based yogurt. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. You can have the donut. Should you have the donut? Dinner. You can have a cheeseburger and you can have some grilled salmon. Just because you can have the burger doesn't mean you should. Those are some small things, but think about all of the larger decisions in your life that have a greater impact, which, I mean, food has a great impact on health, weight, all of those things, mood. I love some of the research that they're showing nowadays about how important your diet is on your emotional, mental, spiritual, physical state, that it just doesn't impact your body, that it impacts so many things. I'm an advocate for food studies, and most people that know me, I'm very meticulous about what I take into my body because I want to have a healthy life. I want to value my life. And if I value my life, I will make choices that represent that, specifically with regards to food. So just because you can doesn't mean you should. But think about all of the decisions that we make on a daily basis. Like just because you can lie to your boss about being sick so you can stay home doesn't mean you should. Just because you can take an extra serving because nobody's looking doesn't mean you should. Just because you can take a pen from work doesn't mean you should. Y'all, pens, you can get pens off Amazon. Like you get everything else shipped to your house. Stop taking pens from work. I'm just saying. And just because you can't cheat on your spouse doesn't mean you should. There's so many things that that we could apply that premise to. Most popular right now is that people work full-time jobs, which is a 40-hour week, but in reality kind of leans towards a 60 to 80-hour week. Like, let's be real, how many people take their work home? On top of that, you need to be building a side hustle and helping it transition into your empire. And then if you're a woman, you are trying to eat healthy to maintain your weight for yourself or your mate. You are preparing meals for your family, planning for your family, shopping for your family, being your spouse's personal assistant, because we all know when you're in a relationship and you're a woman, you are your spouse's personal assistant because you are managing their lives. All while being a mom if you have kids. And let me tell you, there isn't enough time in a year to do all that you can do, but there is enough time in a year to do all what you should do. Y'all see where I'm going with this? All right, we got about 2 minutes. I hope you totally understand the premise of just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I actually do have a t-shirt that says that. I should have put that t-shirt on. But anyway, that premise was birthed out of P31 Ministries, which was the organization that I had. I think we started in 2011 and went all the way to 2018. But I have some book recommendations for you guys before I sign off that will help you implement the premise just because you can doesn't mean you should. This is a great book, Margins by Richard Swenson. It teaches you how to create margin in your existing life and kind of holds you accountable about how you can and why you should be. This book right here, y'all, do I have it right? Sorry. This book right here, Life Wrecker. This is a Life Wrecker book. I'm gonna have a lot of these. Y'all will know, I will tell you which ones are like. This is a Life Wrecker book. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. I think it's Comer, or is it Comer? I don't know how he pronounces his last name. Get this book, y'all. Get this book. This book is a life wrecker, life changing. If you feel like you're on a rat race, you feel like you can't keep up with everything, you feel like you're doing too much, you feel stressed, you can't find your emotional health. And let me tell you all, this premise and these books have changed my freaking life. Like, I was the kind of person that I was incapable of resting. Like, I hate it when someone says you just need some rest. I hated it. But now, let me tell you something. For me, I'm a person that really values time. I feel like time is the rarest commodity that we have, and that it's the only commodity that you only get in a allotted amount for. It's the only commodity that you can't recoup. You can recoup money that you lost. You can recoup physical, tangible things that you've lost, but you cannot recoup time. And it's the only commodity that you have no real control over how much you get. Your lifespan is not in your hands. So if you want to spend and invest your time wisely, first of all, pick up one of these books, y'all. Pick up one of these books. And both of them are available on Audible if you're the kind of person that listens while you're driving or while you're doing tasks around the house. But I like both. I like the physical book because then I can highlight and put tabs and stuff in. I haven't done on these copies. I actually have another copy of this margin. The one I teach out of has all of the tabs and stuff on. I just didn't want to have that one on here on the show. And this book, I actually just bought it because I listened to it first. And now I'm going to go through it and put all my tabs in and highlights in like I like to do. And possibly will teach from this book the next opportunity I get to teach. So that's all I got for you today. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Pick up these two books. And I'll see you all next time. This is Dr. T out. Peace.